Do I play Animal Crossing? No. I never got into that franchise. I played the first one on Super Nintendo, like for 5 or 10 minutes. I didn't give it an honest chance. I just never really got into it. But yeah, the new Animal Crossing is one of the big deals right now. I feel like if I did get into it, it'd be a massive time sink, and I'm just not looking to use up a lot of time that I don't have. It's one that would definitely take up things. Niddle? Nildham? Is that how I say that? I do not share your sentiment. Semester is about to end. I am thrilled and relieved. This semester needs to end. This has been quite the adventure we've all been on, and I'm ready for it to be over. Yeah, massive use of time. Yeah, exactly. That's what. If I were to get into a game, we talked about this at the end of Q&A last time, briefly. But if I were to get into a game that took a lot of time, I'd probably get into one of the new Civs. I think that's where I would invest that time. Or an RPG, maybe. A JRPG. World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft would end my life. If I got sucked into that game. I don't know how any of you could possibly play that game and be productive in the world. I assume you just don't. Probably just not productive. Excuse me. Maybe that's why we have so many people fail in computer science. I think computer science majors are more likely to be into things like that, like World of Warcraft, than just spend all their time playing games and don't do their work. What do I want this up? Whereas some other majors, especially non-STEM majors, I'd imagine that's not as much of an issue. They might have other things taking up their time and other similar things, other similar issues with their students, but I think in computer science we have more of the World of Warcraft, the constant gamers. And when you're doing homework and, well, this homework, I'm 5 hours in and I'm barely even started. I could be playing World of Warcraft right now. You know, it's easy to give in to that temptation. Yeah, spending most of your time doing lecture questions. A course like this is very demanding on your time, so it'd be tough to be addicted to a game and take a course like this. This and 191 at the same time, and being addicted to something like World of Warcraft or RuneScape. It'd be tough. And that's what a lot of students are facing. That's a lot of what I'm hearing is being at home and just not being in that academic environment. It's a lot easier to just screw off instead of working hard when you're in a completely different environment. Yeah. When it's just one click away, it's tough. Yeah, Netflix is a tough one. Netflix, I'm good with Netflix until I find a new show that I watched the first episode and it's good. I gotta binge the whole thing. So I try to not watch new stuff. I just watch The Office for the 100th time. All right, so let's start some lecture today. Lecture today is more of Do we get to see your dog? I don't. So let's start lecture. Yeah, I want to answer this one. So I don't have a dog right now, but we are actually getting one in a couple weeks. So maybe in a couple weeks. I won't really be streaming lecture anymore, but I don't know. I might want to do some streaming over summer. Then I'll show my dog. But so let's get into some lecture. Today's lecture is fairly unstructured. I don't have slides. I don't have any specific thing that I really want to cover except one of the first thing that I'm going to show, which I did show in Q&A last time, but I want to make sure it's in lecture content, and that's not destroying these towers, but making these towers extremely inefficient and seeing how it affects our game. So that's the one thing I really want to show. Other than that, send your requests for what you want to see. I'm pretty much done making lectures in both my classes for the semester. Everything that you need for any assignment, it's all out there. You have everything you need to know. Now it's a matter of getting everything done. And me, personally, I'm shifting my focus on grading. Learning objectives 4 and 5 are up on oh my goodness, Autolab. So check out your feedback. Check out what you did on that. Now that we have all 5 learning objectives, the first pass is done with all of those. By Sunday, I want to do my second pass on every single one to get anything. If your feedback said finish the lecture questions and you finished the lecture questions, I want to update all those over the weekend. All the, like, if you did really good on Brain Breaker and you needed that to make up something, I want to do all that over the weekend. But with just the first pass, if you want just a little bit of stats, 101 students out of the class, in this class, have a passing grade locked up. They have all 5 learning objectives on the first pass, the first try, knocked it out, did a great job, and they have a passing grade locked up in the books. So I'm happy to see so many of you doing so well. It's easy to get bogged down on all the talk of failure rates and a lot of people resigning and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to focus on the positive. That's let's come up with the exact number. Oops. 101, just straight shot, just one shot and got it the first time. And that's 26.5% of the class. Just killing it, just knocking everything out. So I'm happy to see that. It's a nice to get some good news. And then of course I want to see that number go up to, I'd like at least 60% of the class passing. Hopefully we can get to that. Hopefully we can get to that level, but we'll see. A lot of students are on the other side. There are a lot of students are really far behind, which with loose deadlines, it's always a risk that some students will just bury themselves and not be able to make it up. So I'm concerned about that, but you know, there is some good news in there at least. So we'd be able to build a genetic algorithm for these bots so they don't take the same path and keep dying. I wouldn't want to do a genetic algorithm, but we could add some more sophisticated AI. Yeah, they're literally just doing maze solver. They're finding the shortest path to the goal, to the enemy base, and just going that route. I would like to have some tower avoidance. Have them be programmed in some way that they'll avoid the towers to some degree. It's something I'd like to just play around with and do. But yeah, they ignore the towers right now. They treat it as a maze. Toldfish, you've had a suggestion like this before, dude. It'd help if you told the whole class at the start of the semester that it'll take up a lot of time. I do that. That's a good portion of my day 1 lecture, and it's in the syllabus. I'd say straight out, 12 hours per week at a minimum you need to be spending on this class. At a minimum. If you're not willing to spend that time, go drop the class. I'm pretty straightforward on how much effort this class is. Your other suggestion was explaining the grading structure. If you took 10 minutes to explain your grading structure. I do. I take most of that first day of class and then several other lectures. I took like a half-hour timeout, like 3 or 4 weeks into the semester, just to talk about the grading structure again. The problem is, if you don't pay attention, what am I supposed to do? I can say whatever I want. Most of the class, especially at this stage of the game, we're down to 36 viewers live. You know, most of the class isn't even listening to me at this point. There's nothing I can say to help any situation. And most of the people I'm talking to, probably the ones in that 101 who have their passing grade locked up and will be passing this class. So, I mean, there's just... I said that thing. You obviously didn't pay attention. Like, who's... The only people paying attention are the ones who don't need to hear things like that. When to expect to see the expansion, the homework expansion grades? It'll be a little bit. I want to do the learning objective. So learning objective grading takes priority because that's the difference between pass and fail. So I want to prioritize that. Expansion grade, that's the difference between a single letter grade. So I'm not, the stakes are just a lot lower. I will get to them, but probably not by Sunday. By Sunday, I want to catch up on all the learning objective grading. And if I can, the homework 5. Homework 5 is going to be a bit of a crunch to be able to get that in. Just because you just did the lab yesterday. A lot of the class is still doing the interviews. Some of the interviews will be on Saturday. Maybe some on Sunday. And some of my TAs, I think they do Monday interviews the following Monday. So I won't even have all the data in. But definitely learning objectives. And then I'll try to get some expansion grading done. Okay, but let's... so today's lecture, I just want to go through a few more examples of towers. And I want to explain some more of how the AI works. That part I didn't really get to last time. So I just want to talk about that. I want to give this demo of slowing down these towers and seeing what happens there. And then mostly requests. All of next week, it's all... next week is all review. So, I can just do my... I can just go through the course and just start talking about stuff I've talked about throughout the semester. I'd rather not do that because I don't think it's super useful. But if you have requests, if there's anything you want to see, even if it's a little outside of the content of the course, I'll take requests and try to do whatever I can. Especially I'll be interacting with chat, so if you want to see something that day and you're like, hey, can you show us this thing that's kind of related to the course? Then I can just kind of play it by ear. I won't be preparing any lecture material. There won't be any slides. I won't have anything formal prepared for these. But we can just kind of do whatever. And you can make requests to see the kind of stuff you want to see. These lectures won't be posted. These will just be, I'll label them as Q&A for the entire time and just do effectively a longer Q&A session. But I'll try to take ideas and then go to more demos instead of just interacting with the chat the entire time. I'll get requests and ideas from the chat and then go and do some demos and examples and explain some stuff. Monday is going to be the TA lecture. TAs are going to take over the lecture and talk about careers that you can go into with a computer science or engineering degree. So that's stuff. So that lecture, I recommend it. Definitely check us out for that. I'll be still come here for lecture. I'll either host them or raid them or whatever, or at the very least give a link to their Twitch from this channel. But still come here. So our protocol is still the same. Just pop in here, and then I'll have something figured out. Probably host them. I just got to figure out which buttons to click to do that. All right, so. And again, kind of going back to what I was just saying, it's this those of you who are still showing up to lecture, especially watching live, I assume you don't need review. You're probably not, most of the people here probably aren't even taking the final because you're going to have your learning objectives done. So I don't want to just review concepts of the course because I probably am not talking to the right audience for that, for what it's worth. I mean, if you're here and you're trying to get prepared for the final and make up learning objectives, please, please, please ask some questions in the chat, and I'll talk about it. I'll prioritize that even. But I'm just guessing that you're not, that you're not the ones I'm talking to here. Preparation for 220 and 250. I can talk about that. It's a good one. But let me get this example out there. Let me show some towers stuff. And what I want to do here is take a look at these towers. Not tower actor, but game objects. And I think I call it dodgeball tower. We're going to go into the dodgeball tower class. Actually, I'm in the wrong class. I don't want to go in the dodgeball tower class. I'm going to go into genetics. Take a look at my genetic algorithm. So these towers are using the aimbot from the genetic algorithm homework. This is a different version of the homework. This is when we could still use var for the genetic algorithm, which so this is a mutable genetic algorithm. It's a slightly different variation of the same assignment that I have the solutions that I'm showing here for. So this, I have generations of size 5, and I have 3 generations. So I have very low numbers for this, and my towers are hitting pretty well. I'm blue instead of yellow, by the way. I was messing with some stuff. But these towers are still pretty deadly. I can't tell which one I am. So these towers are still pretty deadly. Let me refresh so I'm the yellow one again. So my genetic algorithm is quite optimized. It's nailing the efficiency with being really fast. And this is important if they want to hit somebody, because if they take a half a second to compute, by the time they finally fire, the target's not there anymore. So let's pump up these generations. Let's do 1,000 animals per generation and 10,000 generations. So we're going to artificially hamper this genetic algorithm, make it extremely inefficient. I keep hitting the wrong button. Let me save that, and I have to, whenever you make a change to the code, if you're running in production, the production way of doing it, you have to do docker compose build. Each time you make a change to the code, that's what's going to recompile the code. Docker compose up is only going to run the compiled code. And docker compose build is going to compile that code. Hey, but why? I changed this. That was really strange. I think my guess there, I didn't think Maven was this sophisticated, but this is my guess. I chose those exact numbers during Q&A last time. I think Docker cached that and saw that it already built that, so it didn't have to rebuild it. That's my guess there. That's pretty awesome if it did do that. This is going to take a little while to build, which gives me a great chance to catch up on some chat. Yeah, Chewy Skittles. I remember being extremely intimidated on the day one. The day one, which is kind of the downside of taking that approach. Any student who is here to learn and really wants to work hard and do things, unfortunately, it has the effect I don't really want to have on them. But I do make my day one intimidating just to make sure that everybody knows, hey, this is what you're signing up for. I just want to make sure you know this is what's about to go down this semester. It's going to be a lot of work. And I want to try to get that better, more positive spin on it, that if you are willing to put in that work, you're going to get a lot out of it. It's going to be a really great time. If you really want to learn computer science and willing to put in that work, don't sweat it. You're going to be fine. Which kind of sucks because it's the top students, the students who are willing to learn and work hard, that are listening to me when I say that. So, and the other ones, the ones who need to hear that, who are not willing to work hard, they tend to just blow it off. Not all of them, not always, but in general, they're more likely to ignore what I say and be like, oh, 12 hours a week? Yeah, right. I'm going to do it in 5. And then they end up resigning. So let me rerun this. This is going to restart the server. So we're going to restart at level 1. And those towers are going to be extremely slow now. Once this gets up and running, those towers are going to shoot extremely slow. They're taking a tremendous amount of time to figure out where to shoot at this point, which I don't know why. I must have changed something, but this is level 2. We should start at level 1. Makes the game a lot easier. And hey, now they start firing. But they're taking so long to compute that the target is long gone by the time they actually fire. So we know that running generations of 1,000 and 12,000 generations, we know that's... No, come on, it's killing my point. Well, we know that that's slow. We know that's a terrible thing, terribly inefficient thing to do. But up until right when I was about to say it, our game is still running fairly smoothly, where it's bogging down a little bit just because I'm using all of my CPU. I don't have any processing power left. But with those towers taking so long to compute, since everything here is running concurrently, those towers taking a long time to compute doesn't affect the overall game because the game is running concurrently as those towers are computing. The towers are not taking up all the processing power. Well, they're taking up the whole server right now, but they're not taking up all of the attention of the program. So when we're running this program on in certain actors, each one of these towers, each one of these towers has its own actor. So each one of these towers is working independently of the game overall. The game has its own game actor as well. So the game is still sending the updates with the updated game state to all of us. It's sending it, broadcasting it over our sockets and everything. That's happening at the same time as those towers taking forever to compute where to shoot. So even though those towers are taking forever, since we're doing this concurrently, we can still have the game running at 30 frames per second. It's still broadcasting those messages over the WebSockets. None of that is impeded by the fact that these towers are being so inefficient. So this is one big thing that we gain when we're running concurrency, when we're running code concurrently, is that one really slow computation is not going to just destroy our entire app. That tower can be humming along on one core of the processor, on one thread, and the way the OS is going to allocate CPU, it's going to not let that one tower just completely destroy the whole performance of everything that we're doing. Let's make this efficient again, because when there's a lot of towers, when we're on a level with a lot of towers, is when we are seeing some slowdown, just because it's taken up all of the CPU. It's taken up the entire thing. And I'm curious if this is caching the way I think it is. So even though that didn't build anything, I think it did still switch to an old build of that Docker container that it has in cache. So we should see quick towers, even though it didn't have to recompile. Yeah. It's really neat. It's a good Docker. That's a good Docker. So that's the big thing I wanted to show. I'll go back to chat and take requests. And if we do ever get live again, did I even take the code? Oh, I was looking at it in we're looking at the code in GitHub. That's how I was showing it. I'll talk about the AI system and how the AI worked. I talked about it in the slides last time. But if we get there, if I'm looking for more things to talk about, I'll go through the code and show you how the AI system works. And did I miss a chat? I might have, just because I was jumping around a bit, I might have missed some chat. So if I did miss something. Friend almost failed junior year. Doug. The expansions. I do want to get to the expansion grading, but I got to prioritize learning objectives. There's just so much more at stake. They expect that number to be so low. H&H, do you mean the 101, the number of passes? I think that number's, I think it's a little higher than I expected. Because that's only the first pass for each learning objective. So it was really easy to miss one thing and not get the learning objective on the first pass. For example, if you didn't have all 6 lecture questions, most of the time that's the feedback is, hey, just finish that last lecture question and then you'll get this learning objective. So they basically have it. They just didn't have it at that time. So to be up on all the deadlines for all 5 learning objectives, I don't know. It's not that tough, but when you know the deadlines are soft and you know you're going to have that makeup opportunity, I can see a bunch of students giving into temptation and saying, I'll do it later. So I am happy that the number is as high as it is. 26% of the class, it's all right. Could have been worse. Can we talk about deployment on a VPS? VPS? Virtual private server, maybe? Is that what that is? Yeah, I can talk about that. Like how I have towers deployed right now. We can talk about that. I talk about that in 3.12, so I actually have, I'm fully prepared to talk about that. How to go from the project that we have in the deployment configuration that we have with Docker Compose, taking that repo, if you want to clone that repo and host it with your own domain name, if that's what you're talking about, yeah, we can definitely talk about that. I would confine that to the Q&A. Well, I guess all next week is Q&A, so but yeah, we can talk about it for sure. He adds expected. Yeah, and I have expected time on every homework, told Fish. I forgot about that one, actually. I've been doing that. It's just something I've been doing for so long. I forget that that's not the norm. But yeah, I have every single assignment has my expected time that's going to take, which is usually around 15 hours. Which I think is about right. Some students, it varies. 15 hours is about the average, is about my expectation for where I expect a student to be going into that assignment. Students who are really sharp on what they're doing, really paying attention in lecture, and know what's going on in computer programming in general, they usually get it done in, 3 to 5 hours, sometimes even less. Somebody who isn't really paying attention in lecture, doesn't really know what's going on, and is kind of stumbling through the course, they're the ones who are going to take 20, 30 hours, sometimes even more. But the typical, my image of what my expectation of a student is, the expected time, is where they are. Where I expect them to not really be familiar with the new material, but I expect them to have the old material down pretty well. And the new material they might be a little shaky with. So that 15 hours includes a lot of studying time, reviewing lecture slides, going to office hours, and asking conceptual questions. Yes, I know it doesn't happen like that in practice, but that's what my estimates are based on, is my image of where I expect a typical student to be. I remember being extreme. Yeah, day 1 intimidation. Let me scan through chat and try to find another example request, so I'm not treating this whole thing like Q&A. Project contribution grades are going to take a while. It's not even due yet. I might get to some of them before they're due. I would like to merge some into master and update the live versions as we go, but it's just not not completely realistic. There's a lot of grading that I have to catch up on. But I am shifting my focus. I mean, I got 2 learning objectives graded this week already. So I am making a lot of progress since I'm not spending time prepping lectures. So it is going fairly quick, but there's just a lot of it to do. It's going to take me some time. For the makeups next week, I'm assuming the TAs will be emailing us to schedule a time. We don't have to email them, right? Yeah, so it's going to work. The logistics, every TA should be using the same logistics as they have all week, or all semester. Well, the second half of the semester. Where they'll invite you, they'll send you the Calendly link, you'll sign up for an interview time. You're just interviewing for any of the things that you missed. Yeah, blah blah. Yeah, you can make that. We could. So the. Did this stop? Oh, I didn't refresh after I restarted. So towers. The reason I have this set up, this game, why I use the technologies that I used to build this and everything, is you have everything that you need to be able to build this game. Like, you can build this game with what you know from 1.16. It'll take some time, of course. It'd be a massive homework assignment or a semester-long project or so. But you can build this, so if you want to make the Tom and Jerry show, you can do that. I won't, because I have, as I just said, a ton of grading to catch up on. But maybe over the summer. I don't know. Requests. Library. How do we use them in Scala? And their command lines. Like import library stuff. The library, I mean, we've been doing that all semester. You go to... So say I want to do some AI Maven... Probably just that. And you go to Maven Central. You just go to Maven Central. This is kind of the de facto way to search. Maybe you want to do some AI. You search and you find all kinds of libraries. Maybe this isn't the best way to search. Maybe that's not the best way to search. Overview of all AI Java libraries. But you find one that you like. You like Apache Jenna. Of course, lots of documentation to get you started, but Apache, is it Jenna? Maven. And you can get the Maven dependency, copy, paste it into your POM. You have that library, read the documentation, figure out how to call their API, how to actually import and use their stuff in your program. Use their examples, follow the documentation, and you can use anything you want. That's why I talk about the POM and Maven, why we have that set up, especially instead of using like jars or something like that. So you have that ability. If you have a library that we didn't use in class that you want to use, find their Maven dependency, paste that in your POM, and you're ready to go. You're up and running already to use that library. That Maven will download that library, link it to your project, and then you can start using that. 220, 250 prep, yeah, we can do some of that. Maybe I can give brief overviews of each course. 250, I can talk about that at length. I taught that course a few times way back when. 220, I've been meaning to brush up on all the details of what they cover in 220 anyway. So that'll give me a good reason to do that. And give you kind of an overview, kind of a heads up kind of lecture. This is what's about to go down next semester. This is what you should be studying over the summer. Got a one on all learning objectives. Yeah, hell yeah. So I'm talking about. And yeah, the number, you know, in a perfect world, the majority of the class would have all ones on all learning objectives, but it's not reality. I don't expect that. Teach us how to use command lines. I would like to add that to the course. That's one of those topics. We actually discuss this sometimes. Teaching how to use command line. Like, it's something that at some point, as you go along in your computer science career, we just expect you to have, but we don't really know which course is responsible for teaching that. I think for the most part, we decided 220 was that course. Because at some, like when I teach 312, if I teach any 300 or 400 level class, I just expect you to know the command line by then. Like, you've been around computer science this long, at some point you had to have picked that up. But yeah, I think it's 220 that we decided is the first command line course. Type stuff in Press Center. Yeah, pretty much. The pointer sneaking from the backside of a bot? What? I would like to get... Jogger Joel. You got a lot. He's throwing a lot out there. And does it mean that the algo changes? Oh, you mean like a feature expansion? I'd like to do something like Towers, maybe Towers itself. Next semester as a project contribution thing. Because I'm sure every one of you has like 5 things you'd want to add to this game. It's fairly bare bones. I mean, it's up and running enough to really show this is what the game is, but there are a lot of things where it could expand. Yeah, getting the percentage of AI that make it to the base and not AI avoiding the towers and being smarter about it. There's a lot of things that we could add to this game. So if I threw that out there as a project contribution and made this open source, then we could do it. I talked about this last time. The big issue is that I have the solutions to 3 homework assignments in this thing. Everything's working off of that 3D physics engine from the assignment. The AI are using pathfinding. The towers are using the genetic algorithms, aimbot, to be able to fire. So I got 3 solutions to assignments, and I just had to be careful that I'm not leaking my own solutions. So the container, Docker is not using Git, but it could. That is a common strategy. Where am I? Here I am. That is a common strategy. So I'm using Git to host this repo, and I can do Git pull whenever I don't have any changes, so I'm not going to bother going through that. Type in my username and password. But I'll work on this in IntelliJ. I'll push to my repo on GitHub, and then I'll go to my deployment server and pull those changes, and then rerun Docker. There are ways, pretty simple ways, but there are other setups where right in your Docker file, so Docker, when I build the container, it's going to run this file, which is installing Java, installing Scala, installing SBT, installing Maven, setting my home directory, copying all the files for my directory from this directory into the container. So I'm pulling from Git, getting all the latest files, and then I'm copying all of those files into my Docker container, and then compiling, creating that jar file, getting my networking set up, and then running my code. This line right here, this copy all my files into the container, that I could replace with a Git a git clone. I could clone all my GitHub files right here. So instead of having to download the whole project, I could just have my Docker file and have my Docker file go to GitHub, get all the files for the project from GitHub, and then compile it and run it. So I don't have it set up to use Git, but I would just have to replace this line from copy all my files to run git clone http blah 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 blah, and it'd be mostly the same setup. So yeah, you can. I just don't have it set up that way. It's not the way I did it. Oh, I thought 12 hours a week, wow, but ended up 15 at least. Yeah. 12 hours is the minimum. I'd say if you're putting in less than 12, you're not going to do so well. You're at least not going to get the A for sure. 12, maybe even 8 hours a week, you could probably pass, but you're definitely not getting an A. And some of it's a little off. Like some of you probably put in less than 12 hours a week. I would ask, how much time did you spend learning computer science outside of this class? So maybe in 115, you were working on a side project and you learned a lot of these concepts not inside the course. Like actually doing the work, I don't know, an hour a week, maybe 2 hours a week to actually physically do the work if you know everything that's up. Like that's how long I would expect a TA to have to spend on the course to be able to get everything done. Someone who knows everything. The 12 hours a week is incorporating a lot of learning the concepts and learning the material. On the other side of that, if you're lacking in some of the 115 knowledge, you're easily going over 12 hours a week. If you didn't get an A with 100 on everything in 115, or at least studied over the break, and caught up on everything you didn't know, if you're coming into 116 without that, you're spending more than 12 hours a week. Probably just a pass. So much for concurrency. It must have been when I maxed out the server. Maze Idea Plus. I want to get... Alright, 119. Let me try to find another example. Well, we're still in the lecture portion. Since this will end up on YouTube, I would like to get one more example instead of just chatting. This kind of turned into Q&A, which I'm fine if that happens next week, but I'd like today to be one last semi-lecture thing.